Okay, hello, good morning. So I've been trying to use the extension, but it's not quite working yet. And the reason is I'm using all these different tools for managing the diff, like the actual, like modified definition of a file. But I think I'm overcomplicating it because the only thing, like, it's such a controlled environment. So when we grab the diffs, we don't really care about the git diff. What we care about is the data we need to make that modification. To the file. And with Git, you have like old start, new start, old lines, new lines, you have the lines, and it's very, very complicated. It's also based on unified diffs. So you don't only have additions and deletions, you also have lines in between. But as I said, this is a controlled environment. So we don't have diffs that, like we don't have unified diffs. So that means that any change made is a set of removals and additions. And the only thing we really need to manage is where should this change be applied. And in that context, we don't really care about we don't really care about the old start and the new start. Old start and the old lines. The only thing we care about is at what line was this thing applied? And what's the range we need to modify to make that update? So you might delete 5 lines, right? Which means, okay, we need to take a chunk of 5 lines so that you're able to delete it. Or it could be you are adding 5 lines. And then we don't need a range of 5 lines, right? We just need to, there isn't any range. It's like at the point of where you started. So basically all we need is a range and the lines. So we're going to try to do that now. And I have tests for this now, so that also helps. It was kind of sucky. I created my PR twice because it had problems, but at least I identified the issue. And this is important, right? When building these kinds of solutions, you have to try them in the wild to make sure that it actually works. Oh, sorry. So what we're going to do, we're going to define a new type of change. So where are we doing the rebasing? Here we go. Here we get the diffs, and then we just have the diff string here, right? And then we pass in the diff to the new rebaser, and we get file change it of commits. This is where it's happening. So we're parsing the git diff. We should still do that. By the way, oh my god, what's happening? I did, what's this library? Funny. It's parse git diff. Take me to the parse git diff repo. Yeah, but where? Oh, this is where we search. Damn it. What is the repo name? Why didn't I find it? So, hi there. Thanks for building this library. Damn, he's not looking at it. Okay, this is not a huge deal because it's very unlikely you add a file without making modifications to it, but we really need to handle that. So what we're going to do here, we're not going to use this hunk thing from diff. we're going to define our own change. So let's call it file modification. And it's just going to have lines, which is a string array. And then it's going to have a range, which is a number and a number from 2. That's all we need. Let's see. Oh, yeah, and we don't actually need, because there aren't hunks anywhere else, so we can just actually add those to the thing. Yeah, and then we'll have some errors here, because we okay, this is normalized changes. Where's the original? Here we go. Why isn't it showing an error here? We're getting the changes. Where's the modifications? Delete file. Chunk. Dependencies. Oh, here it is. Get modification type from change. Is this being used anywhere? No. Oh, yeah, so this is basically if the range, yeah, so what we should do here now is yeah, so this is interesting. We basically need to look at the lines now to understand what kind of modification type it is. So yeah. So it's basically, yeah. Well, maybe we can rather just do line changes. Yeah. So what we do is lines, and then we reduce over that. And then we'll start on 0. And then if line 0 equals minus, we're going to have ACC minus 1. We're going to have ACC plus 1. As I said, there's no like, there's always minus or plus. So we could even actually put that into the type. That's kind of cool. So it's not a string. So lines would be array of yeah, exactly. Why is this failing? Oh, look at that. So if line changes more than 0, it's an addition. If it's line changes less than 0, it's a deletion. And if there aren't any like line changes, it's a modification. That's fine. And then we're getting into the thing here. And this should return modify text file change. Oh. Okay, I guess it's file change then. I wonder why these aren't giving errors. Why is this giving an error? Oh, yeah. Sorry, so this is, maybe I can just remove that. Oh, this is interesting. Concat array? Oh yeah. Why isn't it able to infer the type here? I find that to be very weird. Line diffs. Well, let's call it diffs. Well, line diffs. Line diffs. That's what it is. It's not the lines, it's the line diffs. Export type line diffs. And then import line diffs here. So this would be, oh, here we go. Line diffs. Cool. And then we don't have this old start. We're just going to create a range here. And this range, and we don't care about the old stuff. The old stuff references given the initial state of the document, where does this change happen? But we don't care about that. We only care about where the actual change happens. So we're going to say chunk to file range start, because normally we're going to apply all of these changes in order, right? So we only care about new start. And then we shouldn't do start plus new lines. We should really do, so what are the actual chunk you need to do the modification? So as I said, if we're deleting 5 lines, we need the 5 lines, right? But if we're modifying those lines, so I think it's like chunk to file range. Wait, what? Oh, from file range. Sorry. From file range lines. It's something like this. I just can't reflect quite on. This is the thing we want. Why are you complaining? Oh, line diffs. So what does this mean? So from file range, so let's say you have, okay, so let's say it's the deletion. So in this range, you would actually have 5 lines. But in the new one, you would have 0 lines, right? It's a complete deletion. So in this case, it will be 5 minus 0, which is right. It should be 5. You know what? We're going to call this rename symbol line modifications. And then we're going to say modification range. That's what it is. We can even call it modifications. Modifications. And then, sorry, rename modifications. Let's call it file modifications. Cool. So that's right. And if I have from file range is 0, and then to file range would be 5, it would be like minus 5. So I guess we want to like make sure this is, it can never be like minus. Max. So, because that doesn't make any sense, right? Because it just means like, what's the modification range needed? Like, it doesn't mean modification range. Like what it means is what chunk of lines do we need to modify to apply these modifications? Yeah, that's probably not a good term. That kind of just explains it. But the point is that either it will be certain amounts of lines because we're changing them. So, for example, what if you delete you delete the first line and then you modify the second line? Then you would have from file ranges would be 2, and the new file ranges will be 1. So we have a modification range of 1, which means we delete the first line and then we're gonna modify the same index, which is correct. Yeah, I think this is gonna work. But if it's a pure addition, like we don't want to go like below 0. Okay, that's weird. The range cannot be smaller than 0, 0. It just means that it only adds lines. Cool. So if this, the good thing about this is that it absolutely makes it a lot simpler. So is overlapping with change. So here we have is line overlapping with change. Why do we do line? Oh. Yeah, but that's fine. So what we can do here is, so we don't have to do this. Now we can simplify this. So we can just return if previous change modification range. So range is previous change modification range. So if range 0, like now I can actually reason about this. So if range 0 is, so if the line is more or equal to range 0, and line, like it really doesn't understand this. This is very interesting. Or if the line is less or equal to the end of the range, that means that it's overlapping, right? We just have this range that we are gonna apply changes to. And this is how we determine a dependency. It's like, if you need to modify certain lines that's already being modified by a previous change, then that becomes a dependency. Like this is so much easier to reason about. And then in the rebaser, yes, let's see here. So now we have to change these other things. Where, oh, I forgot to put on my music. I need some music to think. Well, obviously I don't need it, but it's nice. Okay. So changes beyond this line does not affect the starting. Yeah, so this is where we're normalizing, which means that this is where we are kind of taking them. We're gonna allow applying the change without any other changes applied. So that means if okay, so here we do the dependencies thing. Okay, so basically we don't normalize if previous change Why doesn't it have an index? Oh, never. I'm not sure if this one, oops. I'm not sure. I think this should be first. So if the previous change is a dependency of the current change, we do not normalize. That's like a given. What's happening here? Oh. Let's see. So what this means is that if it's a dependency, we're just going to continue because we don't normalize dependencies. Wait, is this true? No. A dependency can be like at any point. Like you might have a dependency to rename, for example. So yeah, we do need to. Yeah, so this should be. I think this should just be the modification range 0. So if current change dot modification range 0, let's do the opposite. So if current change modification range 0 is after okay, sorry. Yeah, this is correct. So if the current change we're looking at, if that starting position is after the starting position of the previous change, we're going to continue. Well, we have to say equals as well. I just wonder if we should have a more explicit check for overlaps, because we have this check for line overlaps, but is line overlapping with change? What do we use it for? Yeah. Yeah, this is correct, but I'm not sure if yeah, I think this is the best way to do it. So basically when we're normalizing, what we're doing is that we're basically making every change as if it was the only change applied to the file. And we basically just subtract lines or add or subtract lines to the change. But when we're on a change that's overlapping with the previous change, we don't subtract or add from that previous change because they have to be in order. Meaning that that relationship will always be correct. So we'll still apply like the modifications up to that line number of the change, but we don't include the previous change that overlaps because they have to come in order. Yeah, I think this is right. So line changes here would be yes, I guess this is what we're not doing now. We don't have the information of the line changes. Okay, so what we can do is export function get line changes count from change. So that would be this. Get line changes count from change. Yeah, this is how we're gonna do it. Line changes count. And then this is also gonna be line changes count, rename, line changes count. So what's interesting about this is that, yeah, sorry, nothing. Get line changes count from change. That's the previous change. Yeah, so we don't need to do that here. Can do it here. So if the current change has a dependency that includes the previous change, we're just going to continue. I'm not sure about this. I don't think this is correct. I think we should change this. Because what can happen is that you have a dependency to, as I said, a rename, which is like the first previous change. Like you might have, you might have 5 previous changes, and the first one of those is the rename, which is a dependency. And that means that, yeah, this is wrong. So we should change this. We should rather say if current change modification range This is a tricky one. Damn. So basically what we should check is that we should count line changes if the previous change is on lines before this change. We should always do that. No, wait, we continue. We don't break. Oh, yeah, sorry. We continue. We don't break. No, I think this is just so hard to reason about. Okay, so if the first change is an addition, for example. Oh, sorry. So even here we just continue, right? Yeah, I think this is correct. Changes beyond this line does not affect the starting position. We include any overlaps here because we'll ensure order of overlap, which will give the same result. So if the previous change is equal to or after the current starting range, we're just going to continue. And this will work with overlaps because this is going to ensure that. Yeah, but this is what I don't understand. It's like if we do have dependencies to the previous change, I don't think we need that. That's what I don't understand now. Because now we are identifying overlaps right here. So basically, I don't need both of these. Like, this is fine, but this is much nicer. But if we do this, yeah, so what I think we can do is it's a little bit weird because this only captures overlaps, while this captures if the change is actually after this change. But then you can argue, why not just capture the overlaps here as well? But then, okay, I think we're going to do that. We're going to remove this because the only way changes beyond this line does not affect the starting position. We include any overlaps here because we'll ensure the order of overlaps using dependencies, which will give the same result. Yeah, okay. So we get the line changes and then we have new start. And we don't, as I said, we don't care about this old start. This is just a thing that Git uses. So current change dot modification range. And then we'll modify the end as well. Yeah, I think that's correct. And what were we doing before this? Yeah, we were building the actual, where was that? Just want to check something. So yeah, I think it's fine. We're gonna try this. Okay, so now we're in create. Yeah, so this is when we get the rebase commits. We have to kind of rebuild the correct starting position. So we only care about changes made on lines before the current change, as those are the only lines that affects the starting position. Also, we do not adjust the starting position if the previous change is a dependent. I hate that I do previous first, so we should check. You know what? I think we should add a property of line changes count because we're using it a lot. So let's do that first, and then we'll. So we have modification range. Modification count. The actual line diffs of we do not have unified diffs, so there can only be those kinds of lines. The range we need to modify to apply the modifications. When range is when we only add, the range is the range is 5, for example, but with deletions, we need to capture what we delete. For example, 5, 8. Delete or modify. For example, 5, 8, where we delete 2 lines and modify 1. The number of lines being modified. Some are replaced. Okay, cool. So this is in utils. Yeah. So where's the get? Let's remove that one. And then when we create the thing, yeah, let's just simplify it. Let's just create the modifications first. Like we can. This sucks. Okay, so what we're gonna do is modification count. And then we're gonna say ACC modifications. Yeah, so now we can just push ACC modifications count minus minus. And then we're just gonna do the, well, a plus instead, plus plus plus. And then we're gonna have modifications and then modification count. So here we can just do change.modification count. And this is just to show the correct color. Like, are we fundamentally adding something or removing something or modifying something? Yeah, and I guess you can argue. So you can modify and add and delete, and you could call that modify. But in this context, we are thinking about, are you like conceptually adding something or just modifying what exists? This is used for UI color to conceptually identify additions, deletions, or modifications, where modifications are strictly changing existing lines. That's what it means. Okay. So now let's let's go up here. Okay, so we're back to actually creating the file changes. So we only care about changes made on lines before the current change, as those are the only lines that affects the starting position. Also, we do not adjust the starting position if the previous change is a dependent. So here we say 0. Oops. So if the previous change modification range is below the current change modification range, and okay, so we should change this. So if the change is more than the previous change modification range, and the change doesn't have a dependency to the previous change, so that would, so here we're not really capturing the overlap, right? But here we do. So even though the change modification is more than the previous one, it still might be a change within the range of this one, which we're not checking, but we just check if it's a dependency to the previous, which means that it's an overlap. So this should be modification count. Yeah, and now we don't need this like crazy current line hash changes count. So we're just gonna do the modification range. So let's remove current. I hope I'm right about this. It would be very sad if suddenly we need that old start. But yeah, but I'm very confident it doesn't matter in our context. Okay. And then when we apply the changes, so this is going to be interesting. Now these are line based. So when we apply the changes, so the start, so this is interesting. Now we can just do, do we need a chunk size? Yeah. So this would be change modification range 0, and it's -1 because it's based on lines. And then the chunk size will be start plus change modification count. That's the Oh, interesting. Is the modification count also the range? No, it's not. Is it? So if I... No, it's not, of course. It's not. So, oh, sorry. Modification range -1. Well, is it -1? Yeah, because that's the end index, sorry. Well, this is not true. So let's call this start index. Rename start index. So the chunk size is change those modification range 1 minus this. This is the chunk size. And this is the start index. And then this is the chunk size, the offset, and then we're gonna go through modifications. And then let's call this modification. And that should be it. I'm not quite sure why. Get suggestion. Why this is erroring. Oh yeah, so this would be previous change modification count. I don't, oh, is this because, oh yeah. But this isn't, and this is showing the file diff. From change modification range 0 to yeah, but again, let's see. I'm a little bit unsure if this is like, we'll have to check that. Item change 1. This is based on lines, but it was a -1 there, so I'm a little bit unsure. So what I'm confused about now is, oh yeah, we have to update the test. So we're not gonna have all of this stuff. Now we can reason more about, so the modification count here is 2. And modification change is that we're adding to like the first line. And then this will be modifications. Now we can reason about the count, which is 0. We're not actually modifying. Yeah, this is interesting though. When I say modification count 1, that's kind of, it is a modification, right? But it's like, it's more like line change count. Lines changed count. That's what it is. Let's rename that. Lines changed count. And this is modifications. And in this case, we're changing one line, and the modification range is still 0, 0. Because we only need to grab that specific line to delete it. Modifications. So this one's interesting. This is the one that didn't work previously. So the number of lines changed count here is we're just replacing a line, we're removing a line, we're replacing a line, and we're adding 2 lines. So that means there's a 1 line change because we're removing 1 and adding 2, and the other are like replacements. And the range here would be, well, it would be from 0, and then, oh, sorry. Oh, it's, oh, fuck. So modification range here is 1, 1. 1, 1. I wonder if we should make it, you know what? I think we should make it index based. We're gonna do that. Fuck. That simplifies it even more. So where do we put the range? So this would be -1. Oh, look at this. Start index would be that one. And this will be start index plus that one. Oh, I guess we have to do that. Because these are just actual line changes, right? Yeah, we're gonna try this. And then, where do we actually use this field? Go to references. So, oh, for fuck's sake. Oh, this is gonna bite us. This is fine. This is fine. That's the chunk size. Start index here is not minus. Yeah, we fixed that. And I think this is like actual lines. We can check that. Let's keep it as is. Okay, it wasn't that bad. Okay, let's see now. So modification range here would be from 0 to yeah, so I'm like coming up with this range because it's calculated by the diff, but the diff here would have been to be able to capture all these changes. It would have to, since it's removing line 3, I think it's 2. Ugh. Okay. So I guess this is where I'm a little bit confused. Like, this is also a tricky thing. Like, I'm not deriving this from an actual diff. So I'm creating this. So I had a bug here where I actually had like like it was a unified diff. I actually created a unified diff, and that it all broke, and I was super confused. But this isn't unified. It's actually changing every single line. But what happens here is that it replaces line 1. That's fine. And then it removes line 2. That's also correct. But then it should replace line 3. And this is where I'm getting a bit confused, because it's not doing that. And then it adds line 4 and 5. So I'm wondering, is that because it's 0, 1, 2? Maybe it's not inclusive. Maybe that's the problem. So when we go and we actually do the rebase, apply changes. So when we do this, the slice is not including the end. The end index, this is exclusive of the element at the index end. But we want that to be inclusive. So if I do a +1, oh, it didn't actually fix it. Okay, we have to look at what's happening here, but I'm not sure if the test is correct. I don't know if this diff... I should rather create a diff, I think. And then just parse the diff here. But yeah, no matter. Let's try to understand what's happening, because there's definitely something wrong. So console.log, what's the chunk we're getting here? So we're getting the correct chunk. And then we have this offset where, yeah, so we're just going to check the chunk for every iteration, I think. So we have a before, after, and then console.log. So first we have line 2, line 3. We're removing the first one. So we have line 2 and line 3. And then we have, yeah, sorry. And then we are adding at the same offset, which is 0, which is correct because we did a replacement. And then we have a deletion again, which is on the next index, which is correct. So now we have, we're removing line 2. And then we are removing line 3. Let's see. So we're still on the same index. And then wait. Why does it get line 3 here? Oh, sorry. I guess this one also needs... Oh, let's rather do +1. There we go. That was the problem. Okay, it was actually working. Okay, so now I think we might be in a better position to handle everything. Now we just have to check that it works. And yeah, this is like completely different now. So let's just update it and then see what happens. So I have a relatively simple diff here, but that should allow us to take a look at least. So we have the ho-ho edition, we have the he-he edition. So let's see what happens when I actually click the change here now. So readme, it's on line 3. Yeah, so line 3 was deleted and we added that. And then we added these two lines. Okay, so the diff is still correct, showing it correctly. So if I move the ho-ho down here, yeah, it's showing it correctly. And the ho-ho is fine. We move it up there. And again, we remove the he-he 6 with a he-he 4. And then we added ho-ho. Okay, so this, in my book, this is working. I guess one thing I'm a little bit worried about is like big files, because we are splitting on line breaks and also on on Windows machines. Line breaks, like some documents represents line breaks differently, and I'm doing just a /n, but at the same time, yeah, it might be fine, but this is something we need to test. Okay, so we're happy about this change. We might have introduced some bugs, but we're still happy about it. Cool. Wow, we really simplified it now, and that's great. So what I'm gonna do now is git add simplified diffs. So I have a bunch of other stuff. I'm gonna see if we have some low-hanging fruit here. Yeah, so this should now be fixed. A little bit hard to separate file from commits. Yeah, so when you look at the initial overview here, especially when I was using it and I had many files, it was kind of hard to see the difference between a commit and a file. So I want to change the color of something. So currently I'm using orange to kind of show that something's been modified. But that's for a file. Maybe we should just have blue. Let's try that. Yeah, let's use blue. This is being used for rename. Yeah, but we're gonna do where is rebase? That's the file item, trash item, rebase, commit item. I love this new. Okay, so this is gonna be blue again, and also this is gonna be blue. Now we have the commits. What? This is the rebased ones. These are the rebase commit item. Oh, sorry. Oh, is this? Oh, it's if it's a new commit. Okay, let's try not to care about that. We can check if it is a new commit by prefix of new on commit hash, just so we don't forget that. Okay, this helps a little bit. We're gonna try this first. So let's say that's fixed. Yeah, and then we wanna, let's see, I'm just gonna, I really don't have more time to spend on this. I need to do some stuff. This one's not important, I think. When warning show text about dependencies, just so at least you have some understanding of what these warnings are. Like we can even like give some pointer and details about the actual dependency. But yeah, okay. I really wanted to get to like a new version, but I think I'm gonna work on this over the weekend, hopefully get a little bit of time. And this really sucks. Like I just don't have time to work on it. And it's basically because we have a 4-year-old. It's just so demanding in the weekends. This sucks. This really, really sucks. I really want to finish this. But yeah, that's life. Yeah, I had a bit of a breakdown yesterday because I was gonna have an evening gaming with 2 friends of mine. And it was kind of the first time I felt like, oh, yes, now I'm getting back to something that I was able to do before having kids, which was important to me. Like I love playing games, especially with friends. And I just never have time for it because getting the kids to bed, like I can't do it when they're awake. And then it takes time to get them to bed, so it's not much more of the evening. And then I made a deal with my partner to like, okay, now we have the basement, let's try you putting them to bed, and then I go down a bit earlier. So I get like at least like 3 hours worth of gaming. And then we didn't like communicate the exact way we were going to do that. So we in the evening, of course, everything bad happens. Like one of them is like constantly asking for food, spends like an hour finishing their supper, and then the other starts like a project and starts whining. And then I just looking at my clock, and it's just like they're depriving, is that the word, me of not just like that. It's not about the gaming time, and it's not about having full 3 hours, right? I knew like rationally that it doesn't matter if I'm 30 minutes late. Like let's just get these kids to bed. But there is this like inside of me, and this has been the most difficult thing having children. Inside of me, there is this intense craving to just control my own environment and do things I used to do before having kids. And this was so like explicit, like something I've really never done the last 4 years because we haven't had room for it, like having the basement. And having this 4-year, like having a second kid, which is super tiny. So I just got super upset, completely irrational. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just, yeah, there are many good things about this age, but it's getting a bit, yeah. But I should really be a grown up. I should be mature and just deal with it and not have these expectations. But I don't know. I guess that's like the thing. Like you just have this. That's how you stick with it as well, right? Because you know it's going to change. You know you're going to get some more time to be the person you are as opposed to being the parent person. Like I don't identify as a parent. That's not my identity. Like I am a parent, but it's not like my sole identity. And I guess that's what makes it so emotional. It's like you feel like you're losing a part of yourself because you're not able to do the things you did before you had kids. But you will gradually do it more and more. But it's like, I don't know. Yeah, it's just irrational, emotional, and immature, I guess. Okay. let's hopefully there will be a stream in the weekend, and then we can test this and get these other things fixed, and then publish a new version, and hopefully that will actually work. Cool. Bye.